From the rolling bluffs of the Driftless region to the pristine shorelines of Superior in Michigan, from the Northwoods to the Kettle Moraine, Civic Media broadcasts across all of Wisconsin for all of Wisconsin. Take a trip with us across the radio network to hear from communities throughout the state. This is the Civic Media Spotlight.
Welcome into Hour 2 of the Civic Media Spotlight. Greg Bach fills in for Jane Matinair of Matinair On Air this week. On Tuesday, they recombobulate a little early as Dan Schaefer, founder of the Recombobulation Area, stops by the show to make the big announcement that he will now be political director for Civic Media. He and Greg discuss the start of the Recombobulation Area and how it went from a part-time hobby to a business, and the goals he has now that it has merged with Civic Media.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Matinair on Air. My name is Greg Bach. I am sitting in for Jane Matinair, who is on vacation right now, and we are happy to have you here. We want to welcome you. And that music, Calvin, that music is so familiar. What is that music, Calvin?
Well, that is the theme music of none other than Dan Schaefer.
Why would Dan Schaefer be on our show? It's Tuesday. It's 11 o'clock. It's all sorts of wrong with time and date.
He has a very special announcement.
Well, Dan Schaefer, there you are. Welcome to the show. You've got a special announcement to make.
I sure do, Greg. It is a little bit discombobulating to be here on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But I know we usually like to recombobulate on a Friday.
Yes.
But we are recombobulating on a Tuesday because we have some big news about the recombobulation area and about Civic Media. And that news is that the recombobulation area is now part of Civic Media. And I am now the brand new political editor at Civic Media. Very exciting news. Very exciting to share this for the first time on the air with you folks here at Matinair on Air.
I am so happy about this. Let me be hopefully the first one on air. I don't know. I'm sure other people have shaken your hands, but welcome to the family.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm so excited to join. I'm so excited about this agreement. And I'm so excited to be a part of Civic Media. You know, I've, of course, been here on Matinair on Air and before as Goes Wisconsin every week for the past couple of years as a regular guest, occasional guest host from time to time. I've been there in studio with you as well. And I think it's such an exciting development to be part of the network, to have the recombobulation area be a part of the network, and to be part of this ambitious and dynamic project that you're all working on, and for the recombobulation area to be the first non-radio acquisition in the history of Civic Media. So this is all very, very exciting.
Well, so let's start from, the fact that I think it just makes, like I said, it makes perfect sense that you're here because your mission is the same, I think, as Civic Media is. We're about talking to the people. We're about getting the news and the information to the people. Do people know who I'm voting for? Absolutely. I will not hide that information, but I'm also about giving out what I believe is the best facts with the things you need to know as a listener and the reader. And I feel like you write to the people to inform them fully, and you do your due diligence. You research a lot, you really get into the weeds of the details and distill it down to a way that the people can really understand so they can be informed in their choices, especially in the voting booth, which, as you said, is 2 months away. Oh my God.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to get to that. But yeah. I think, look, like you said, I think you're right. I think it's, our collective missions for both the recombobulation area and Civic Media are very much aligned. And I think that's what makes this new agreement, this new role just, fits like a glove, because I think we're both pro-democracy, locally focused media entities that are covering communities across Wisconsin. Obviously, I'm based here in Milwaukee. Civic Media's network stretches all across the state, but I think our network or our missions are so aligned. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see how this unfolds. I feel like it's a best of both worlds situation for the recombobulation area too, because it will continue to exist and grow, and I'll continue to, be leading it, and not only and we'll be able to do it as part of a team instead of the way that we've been doing it for the last 5 years. And that was, I wrote a piece at the Recombobulation area that you can read. There's also a press release
Mhm.
at Civic Media that you can read about this news as well. But I launched the Recombobulation area just over 5 years ago as a part-time project while I was a stay-at-home dad, and I was basically typing these columns up while my daughter was napping. And now I'm so excited that it has grown into a full-time job and small business for me, and now uh, being part of being added to the Civic Media Network and being part of the team here is just a really, really exciting next chapter for our publication, and I'm really thrilled for what we're all going to be able to do together.
What do you see yourself doing? Where are you? I don't mean to sound like a job interview, but like, what do you see the next steps for you for being a political director? That's a pretty cool thing. That's a great title, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, and I think part of it will just be being part of the conversations to help shape the coverage here across the network at Civic Media, and for people who subscribe to the Recombobulation area and follow the Recombobulation area, the experience there for reading columns and stories, listening to podcasts, watching videos, whatever it might be, that experience will remain quite similar, and
Yeah.
you'll still see work from our regular contributors like Marquette University professor Phil Rocco, and like you mentioned, your guest yesterday, Angela Lang from Black Leaders Organizing for Communities. So all of the things that you have come to enjoy from the Recombobulation area will still exist, and you'll just start to see more Civic Media content on the Recombobulation area, more Recombobulation area content on Civic Media. And like you said, I think I'll be working closely with all the hosts across the network, the many talented and passionate people
And me.
at Civic Media, also Greg, um, and to just chart a really ambitious path forward
Yeah.
for this network, for what we're all going to be able to do together. So I think some of this is still yet to be announced what we're going to be able to do.
Mhm.
Some of it is still figuring that out because this is still very new.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff happening, and I'm really excited about it.
To talk to individuals like yourself, Dan, and to talk to other local leaders as far as whether they're community, social justice, community, political. It's about getting that information out there, and I think it's going to be a fantastic. And wait for the big corporate speak right here, Calvin. Great synergy.
Synergy,
Yeah.
bigger than all of us. Um, yeah, and two, I think the we have very similar missions and want to prioritize local, regional, and state commentary. When I started the Recombobulation era 5 years ago, I wanted it to have a little bit more of a Midwest focus. I
Mhm.
wanted there to be some kind of regional element to it. But the more I wrote, it just became so clear that there is such an appetite for local coverage stuff about when I started writing stuff about Milwaukee or about Wisconsin as opposed to some of the regional stuff, that was what really resonated with people. That's what started to gain some traction, and so that's why I kind of changed that initial focus from something regional to something that is local. And I think that is where you can make the biggest impact, because I think some of these I think many longtime Recombobulation area listeners and followers know that I preview every last race on the map for the Wisconsin State Assembly. I've written a whole lot
Yeah.
about gerrymandering over the years. I think people can have their vote matters, and vote matters in presidential elections in Wisconsin more than it does in most states. But I think you're in some of those down ballot races, some of those local races. We just saw it with the August partisan primary a couple weeks ago, how really focusing on what's happening at the state level, what's happening at the local level, can really have an impact. And I think that's so important to recognize. And there's such a gap there because it's to no fault of the many terrific journalists around the state, but the business is changing, and that hasn't always been the best for those individual journalists. And part of that mission that I've wanted to bring with the Recombobulation area is to offer some of that type of commentary and opinion columns that I think have were kind of going by the wayside to a certain extent throughout the 2010s. I think a lot of in Milwaukee in particular, there were a lot of publications that pivoted its content to be away from politics and towards lifestyle or events or dining or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I think that left a gap there for that type of commentary, and I think that is started to be filled by the recombobulation area, also in a much more robust statewide way by the Civic Media Network, and now we get to join forces and do that work together.
Darn right. And I mean, just the work you do on the breaking down all of the races so people can understand what's going on is worth the subscription. And people will still be able to subscribe, correct? It's all the recombobulation area still. And let me tell you something. You can subscribe, and it's such a value. You get so much information when you subscribe. And here's a fun fact, too. When Dan upsets a political leader and they decide to respond, that generally turns into a sale. It's happened twice now in my lifetime, whether you're Derek's Van Orden or you're Scott's Walker. I like that you ruffle feathers, but you're doing it for the best reasons. You're doing it for democracy, and you're doing it for the people. So, and it's wonderful to have you on board, Dan. And as I said in the chat, hello, coworker.
I have coworkers now. This is exciting.
Your coworkers used to just be your children. You're like, they don't even listen to me. But
That's
yeah,
right.
thank you. And I want to pivot on a little bit on what he's talking about, what Dan's talking about as far as like the elections. Just want to reiterate, myvote.wi.gov. Find out your information. Find out if you're registered. Find out your polling place, what's on your ballot. You can go to the recombobulation area for wonderful coverage on races that affect you directly and us as a state and us as a nation. Dan, thank you so much for being here. We will see you on Friday for your regular recombobulation time now.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's right.
He'll be on the show at 10:30 this Friday, as he is every 10:30 on Fridays. That is Dan Schaefer, founder of the recombobulation area, but also political editor for Civic Media. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the family, Dan. Wonderful to have you here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Greg. Let's recombobulate together.
That's what we're going to do. Stick around. We got one more segment. We're going to talk about books and Calvin's hot reads for the summer and this year. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Matt and Air on Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Stay close.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is.
Matt and Air on Air is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs across the network weekday mornings from 10 till noon. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
Next up on the Civic Media Spotlight, we go to the Maggie Dawn Show. Maggie was joined by Scott Ellis, a Harvard, Stanford, McKinsey, and Silicon Valley alumni, who says that we are thinking about wealth all wrong and that it is time for America's wealthiest citizens to admit that sometimes enough is enough.
Welcome back, Wisconsin. I'm Maggie Dawn. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network. It is the first half of the 3 o'clock hour, so it is Maggie and the Millionaires talking money. The very smart millionaire I've got with me today is Scott Ellis. He went to Harvard and Stanford. He worked at McKinsey, the largest consulting firm in the world, worked in Silicon Valley. Guy knows what he's talking about. And what we're exploring, Scott, is this fundamental idea that there is a limit to productive wealth, if that's an okay way for me to put it. And please correct me. And meaning wealth that's serving a productive purpose, that you've cared for your kids and they're going to be just fine, that you have plenty to see you through retirement in all of the luxurious comforts that one could envision, and your spouse is too, that everything is just okay and you don't have to work anymore. Funny, Scott, because about a decade ago when I was in grad school for economics, I was making this argument, not as eloquently as you. And people would make the same counter argument to me. Well, it's not 30 million, it's 40 million. And I would respond and say, well, then pick the number. But there is a number after which the money really doesn't have much value at all to that rich, incredibly wealthy person. They have everything that could possibly be wanted by a human being. And so I think it's important. Your analysis goes a bit further and you suggest that what people end up buying is power and political access and basically the means by which to control the system. Are we at this tipping point, Scott? Is that why this is so very important to you and others?
No, I think we absolutely are. I think there's one issue, which is, are we worried about wealthy folks having money because, there's a lot of research showing that after some point, money doesn't increase your happiness.
Yeah.
And are we worried about that? And for me, that's not my main concern. And I don't think it's the reason we all should be talking about it. I'm worried because I love my country, and I'm worried about the state of our democracy and the state of our capitalist economy. And I think that's what, for all of us, it really should be about, is that, and then our own individual lives. And how do we pursue better lives for ourselves? How do we make sure that our voices are heard in the electoral system? And the issue is that once you get enough wealth and you run out of things to buy that make your daily life better, it's almost like a chemical equation where money becomes power. And so you may not care how much money someone else has, but you probably care how much power someone else has. And when we talk about a lot of the things that are being discussed now in these coming months in the political election here, but stepping back and looking at where the country's been over the last, say, 40 years, the measures of inequality are showing nothing but increasing inequality. But I think the thing we're not talking about enough is the extreme concentration of wealth, which really means extreme concentration of power in the hands of very few individuals. And when that happens, they control things like buying massive media and other communications vehicles. They influence political campaigns. And when they do, the fact that, you and I and all of our viewers or all of our listeners, we each get one vote. And so do the wealthy individuals. But if they're giving $165 million to a political system, paying $2,000, I don't believe my voice is going to be heard. And so it's really about that issue of excess wealth becoming power and how that's used.
Well, in power, I think we're all familiar with the phrase, power corrupts perfectly, right? The more power you accumulate, it becomes really, really difficult to I think, observe some guardrails if your reach is limitless. Okay,
I think a lot about, the sort of issue, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Right.
And what I think about a lot is when people get excessive wealth, what happens to them as individuals? The first is there's a lack of empathy. And it's not because they're mean or intentional. It's just our lives become so different that they don't know what we're talking about when I say I want to pay for taxes to fill the potholes. Like, well, I took the helicopter. What are you talking about? There's a lack of empathy. There's a pursuit of elitism for its own sake. Right. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm in the club and you're not. And, Dr. Seuss had his book where, like, do you have a star on your belly? Well, people want to have stars on their belly, and they use wealth to do that. So the pursuit of elitism. And then the last is just greed. And we're all human. And I would also say, we're the top predator. That's what humans are. That's how we took over the planet. This is what we do. And that's great in times of scarcity because that's how predators survive. But now we're in an era of abundance. There is so much wealth, but we're not acting like it because we're the top predators. And so this lack of empathy and pursuit of elitism and greed are things that lead, and I'm not saying they're bad people, but they're people who, again, are accumulating massive power. And as we know, power corrupts. And I think I would trust each of us to vote and each of us to run our economic lives in a fair system. And I'm worried that that's at risk because of extreme wealth.
Can I simplify this greatly, Scott? I've been jotting notes down furiously as you're speaking, and what's sort of coalescing in my mind is a version of I've been saying for a while. Hey, to save our democracy right now, the only thing that will save our democracy is democracy. A version of that here to save capitalism. If you're a capitalist, we need to stop this level of acute wealth inequality, that we have to limit absolutely scaled wealth, the Elon Musk level wealth. Something has to be done there, and we can start there, and it's urgent. But to save capitalism, we have to face down wealth inequality in this country. Is it a fair way to put it?
I would say we have to save capitalism from itself.
Yes.
And the way we do it is by just managing excessive wealth. Right. We have highway systems. They're great. We put speed limits. It's okay. Right. You have nuclear reactors. We put in the control rods. It's okay. We can harness this power Same thing with capitalism. What we really want is capitalism. What we don't want is hyper-capitalism, and that's where we are now. So I think we need to manage excessive wealth to enable capitalism to do what it's supposed to do, which is to enable us all to thrive.
My guest this half hour, and Scott, I'm going to impose upon you. Do you have a few more minutes to spare with us? Could I?
I do. I'm happy to talk more.
Wonderful, because this is the thing. My special guest this half hour, and for some extra bonus minutes, is Scott Ellis. He's a Harvard and Stanford alumni, worked at McKinsey, worked in Silicon Valley. He himself is extremely wealthy and successful, and he's telling us we got to do something about this, that extraordinary wealth is a threat to capitalism, and by extension, it is also a threat to our democracy. You're not going to go anywhere. Our wonderful discussion with Scott is going to continue after this. I'm going to queue up what I want to talk about next. We've been thinking about this hyper-capitalism and the way that the discussion and the framework, I think, for regular folks has been manipulated a bit, right? Because it seems that we happen to have this all or nothing discussion, Scott, and you've been making some incredibly important points about the nuance about it's not all or nothing. Reject the false choice. So I want to start with that when we come back. You have been sold a bill of goods, everybody. There is a false choice that's been presented to you. It's about time we dig in and reject that false choice for what is better for all of us and our country. I'm Maggie Dawn. Again, my special guest this half hour, and for some bonus time is Scott Ellis. It is Maggie and the Millionaires Talking Money. We're going to be back in just a few minutes here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Don't go anywhere.
The Maggie Dawn Show is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs across the network weekday afternoons from 2 until 4. To learn more about this show and all of Civic Media's programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
Welcome back to the Civic Media Spotlight. We go now to the Chad Holmes Show out of Wausau. He sits down with 85th Assembly Democratic candidate Yi-Lang Zhang to discuss the issues he is fighting for.
And welcome back, Chad Holmes Show on 98.9 WXCO, BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. We're talking to 85th Assembly Democratic nominee Yi-Lang Zhang here on the program. Let's talk about a few different issues, and I'm going to start with one that kind of I'm fortunate to have a microphone in front of me so I can actually ask issues that affect me as well as the folks out there, but I think it does affect a lot of folks as well because I live in Weston, and I think that's you're part of the area as well. I am in the 85th Assembly District, so Pat Snyder right now is my assemblyman. You could possibly be starting in 2025, but I have lived as a renter. I'm not a homeowner. I'm a renter in Weston, and I've lived in the same apartment complex for a lot of years. And I have just got in the last few weeks, got my new lease agreement, and it's popping up again. The rent prices have continued to go up significantly every year. And housing, I think, is one of those issues that every level of government really has to deal with, whether it's the local level, whether it's the state level, and the federal level as well. What are your ideas in terms of dealing with what I think is a housing crisis, whether you're a renter or whether you're a homeowner?
Yeah, thank you, Chad. That's a really good question because it's no secret that in this area here we're struggling with a supply of affordable housing or even housing in general here. And this isn't an issue that government can fix by itself, but it's an issue that we can work with our private entities, our local governments, working with nonprofit organizations, working to get these issues addressed. Whether it's looking at zoning laws, whether it's looking for incentives, whatever there may be, we need to be open-minded and work with our partners to address these issues and increase the supply. And once we get that, it's just a simple economics discussion, the supply and demand. So we need to be able to work with partners and be at that table having that discussion. We can't silo ourselves away.
When I've been thinking about that issue, and again, I think when it gets a little bit personal, you start thinking about it a little bit more. I would like to see from government, I think it kind of touches on what we were talking about a little bit earlier about this will to work to get things done, that this feels like an issue that needs to have almost one of those moonshot mentalities to it. And I don't know if let me ask you, I guess I won't answer the question, I'll ask you the question, is there a level of seriousness about this, whether at the local level, the state level, or the federal level, from your point of view? Because I don't think there is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say about that about other folks, but I know for me specifically, it's a big issue. I'm an individual that it breaks my heart when I'm seeing individuals homeless. I mean, it breaks my heart when people are struggling to pay rent. I worked as an executive of a nonprofit, an organization that basically helps underserved community members. So I know the challenges. I know how saddening it is. I work at a school district that every year we get a homeless report as well too. We want to make sure that that we're helping everybody up, ensuring that everybody. This is not about giving handouts. It's about helping everybody up so that they can be able to chase that American dream. And I take it very seriously, and I intend on taking that same seriousness as well when I go to the state.
And you've also mentioned you are a member of the board for DC Everest, and I would say that DC Everest schools have been very successful in being able to work through the issues that a lot of school districts have been going through. If you get to Madison, in terms of, I think I mentioned to you as well, next year is a budget year, so obviously a lot of issues will be coming onto the plate with the state budget, the 2-year budget that will be worked on. A very difficult process at times. But when it comes to education, when you obviously have your hands dirty because you work in a lot of these issues at the school board level, at the school district level, boy, there's a lot of referendums out there. There's a lot of issues where it's not about building. It's about just having enough money coming in to pay the bills and keep the lights on. Again, it seems like it's an issue that needs a major focus. Based on what you've seen at DC Everest and what you've heard from other maybe school board members, because I'm sure that there are meetings around the state sometimes when school board members get together, what will you be most focused on when it comes to schools, school funding, and just generally the education issue in the state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, thank you, Chad. First I want to say that it's important to note that Madison has been balancing its budget on the backs of local governments. That's not my saying. That's what all the county leaders have been saying as well too. And it's important to note that the school districts are not just going to referendums to stay operating. We're also seeing villages, local governments going to do safety referendums as well to appropriately fund their law enforcement and their firefighters as well too. So there's many concerns that is going on, and we need to take action to address a lot of those issues. I want to focus on issues that are addressing my core. Marathon County has the most prosperous, healthiest, and safest county as kind of its model, and I want to bring that as well to the state. And I would say that the first priority that I would be focused, because I have so many priorities that I want to take on, but I have learned to take it easy and take one step at a time. And one of the first ones I want to focus on is expanding healthcare, and that includes accepting the expansion of Medicaid as well too. Because that would provide healthcare coverage to over 87,000 Wisconsinites. We're one of 10 states that has not accepted it, and that's money that we need in order to ensure that our Wisconsinites are being taken care of.
Isn't that amazing? To be honest with you, that Wisconsin's one of 10, and most of those other 10 are either deep south or deep red states, and this is a state that is not either of those. And I think that goes back again to maybe what one of the points you made early on is about working together, that I can't imagine that that would not be an issue that what we've seen Republicans and Democrats work on in other states around the country, that could be one that could be, again, for lack of a better term, an easy win for both parties, right?
Exactly. We're ensuring that people are being covered. We're helping individuals, helping our own neighbors. That should be priority for Wisconsinite.
When you talk about health care.
Pardon the interruption, but we do have a caller who actually has a question.
Oh, are you okay with a caller, Yee?
Sure.
All right. First of all, caller, what's your first name and where are you calling from?
Go ahead.
Good morning, Chad. This is Tony Gonzalez calling you from Wausau.
Tony, good to talk to you. Got a question for Yee?
Yes, and mainly because we both know the same people with Yee, in particular Representative Pat Snyder. I keep looking on TV and these commercials that come that are paid by PACs, supposedly, and they defame people and everything. And I know there's been a long relationship between the Hmong community Yi Ling in particular, and these representatives who have helped pass bills like teaching Hmong history and things like that. And then we got commercials that come out and say Pat Snyder's a danger to woman. He's doing this and that. Is there anywhere a point where campaigns want to get the record straight and say, look, I don't stand behind that, even if it's a PAC, that's not where I'm at. I mean, so we run clean campaigns, in particular people that, after all, going to have to work with each other.
Tony, thanks for the question. And Yi, any response to that?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. It's good to hear from you again as well, too. I want to say that it's very important to note that, to throw it out there, just a little bit about campaigns. That is funded by independent expenditures. So our campaign doesn't have any communications with them specifically. But I think I also want to emphasize that for me as an individual here, just because you're my opponent doesn't mean I hate you. Mm-hmm. It means that we have difference of ideas and we're working together to better this community here. I mean, we need to look back to the time where, I think people always bring up the time when John McCain and the Senator and President Obama, the competition, they cordial, the fact that they disagreed with one another, but they still respect one another. And we need to go back to the basics, basics of treating each other with respect. And I intend on doing the same. I have a tremendous amount of respect for for my opponent, and I and also have a respect for everybody that disagrees with me as well too. It's not about being who's red or who's blue, who's Republican or who's Democrat. It's about being a Wisconsinite and American first, and it's about addressing and ensuring that everyone, our neighbors, are all taken care of, just like how neighbors do, just like how Midwestern folks do as well.
Let me ask you about the issue of reproductive rights, because I do think that the commercial that Tony was acknowledging was basically talking about the position that Pat and the Republicans in the state legislature have been pursuing since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And I do think that is a significant difference between the parties, correct?
Yes, it is. And, for me as an individual, this is my strong belief, is that every Wisconsinite has the right to reproductive freedom. They have the ability, they should have have access to legal and safe and, safe, abortions if they need it specifically. We need to make sure that and understand that women's reproductive rights is also Wisconsinite and American rights as well.
Again, we're talking to 85th District Democratic nominee Yi Ling Zhang here on the program. As I mentioned as well, that next year is a budget year, and we've seen funding being held back by the state legislature. And again, maybe going back to something you said earlier on, the idea of not working is kind of along those lines. When you look at next year, because again, I think priorities and budgets go together. I mean, there's no better way to know what a priority is than to look at anybody's budget, whether you're a family or whether you're a government. I think we've touched on a few of the other issues. What are some of the other budgetary issues that, if you are elected, that you would be focused on during the budget process next year?
Yeah, as part of my platform, obviously here, I want to address the affordability crisis, addressing childcare. Looking at initiatives and bills resolutions that are being brought up as well too that will address the childcare crisis in our community here. We know that there is a shortage of childcare centers. We know that pay for childcare for childcare workers is low as well too, and there's not many professions as well. We lost a huge amount of childcare centers in the last 10 years, if I recall correctly here, and we need to look at addressing that, because if we don't, that continues to contribute to preventing us from progressing forward. I want to also look at addressing, obviously, we talked a little bit about the housing crisis as well too. So there's so many that we need to address, and we can't kick this down the road anymore. We need to address these issues sooner or later.
What about tax policy? Because I do think when we talk about this, whether it is the budget surplus or whether or not all the tentacles, I would say, kind of are part of this tax policy itself, because I do think there's a rather significant amount of folks that do think that too much of the tax policy is targeted towards the wealthiest people in our communities, whether or not it's in terms of giving back money that's part of a surplus or not. Generally, what is your tax policy? Where should we be going in terms of, because I think in a lot of these issues, again, just to kind of branch out my thought here, is whether it's healthcare or housing or tax policy, that, there's a lot of, working around the edges. And I think sometimes we have to maybe take a deeper dive into it. And I'm maybe asking you to maybe go a little deeper than maybe you're ready to at this point. But generally, if you were able to draw up tax policy or changes within tax policy in the state of Wisconsin, what would your ideas be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chad. So I work as a nonprofit executive. So one of the things I like to do is stretch every dollar, every penny I can. So, that's how I was brought up, and that's how I worked as a nonprofit executive. And I tend to do the same thing, what I've been doing at the Village of Weston, the county board, and also the DC or school board, keeping taxes low and ensuring that we have high quality services. Now, I wouldn't mind, supporting, better services as well too. But we also need to be creative. And then one of the things that I'm proud of is the fact that if you look at if you're in the DC school district, you will notice that your taxes, your property taxes were lowered because of initiatives by the school board. And I was proud to be part of that effort. I was proud of being part of that effort of the fact that we were able to build a new community center without raising any of the tax levies or without raising any tax property, and that was 100% from the community donors. We were proud of being able to build a new administration building without raising additional tax dollars. It was about working together, being smart, and fiscally responsible.
Well, we are heading down the stretch in terms of the campaign. Well, actually, not down the stretch. We're actually getting into getting onto the track. Maybe a better way to put it. But 85th Assembly District here in Central Wisconsin will be very interesting to keep an eye on. And Yi Langzhong, again, appreciate you. We just scratched the surface, I think, on a lot of these issues, but I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. Look forward to seeing you on Monday at the parade, and hopefully we'll get you back on real soon.
Thank you, Chad. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. The time is 9:48. Coming up next, it's our daily history lesson, and we'll have our number for the day quiz with Ian as well here on 98.9 WXCO.
The Chad Holmes Show is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs on WXCO weekday mornings from 8 until 10. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
Closing out this week's Civic Media Spotlight, we'll hear from Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. He was joined by entertainment reporter from the Journal-Sentinel, Chris Foran. Chris and Pete talk about Phil Donahue, the Bronze Fonz in Milwaukee, and Chris's favorite, One Hit Wonder.
So Tom from New Berlin is clarifying. He texted the guy from the sitcom. And now I can't find it. Get too many texts. But he said Mr. Wendell had a song. You see that, Conrad?
No.
Okay. Good work. He's over there. What are you doing over there? Eating a Lunchable?
I've never seen the show. I thought that's what you meant.
I haven't seen the show either. I can't even find the text. We got a lot of responses on this. It's great. Chris Foran is here from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Chris, do you have a favorite one-hit wonder song?
I saw you were doing that. I unfortunately, a lot of them go back to the early '80s MTV era.
Yeah,
they were just frantically throwing up any video they could possibly get. And when I saw that, the first one that came to mind was a song by I believe they're a Swedish duo called Eben Ozen, called AEIOU Sometimes Why.
Oh wow, I don't know that one.
It's pretty silly, is what it is.
That works. All right, so I just want to let's put a button on this Happy Days talk with Milwaukee. Yeah. Do you think it's strange, Chris, when I always see people post when they go to New York, they take a picture in front of Monica and Rachel's apartment building outside.
Right.
It's not even, it's B-roll. The actors have never even been there. It's like,
right.
I find that I get why people do it. Maybe I would do it. I don't know. But it's kind of the same thing with Milwaukee. It was set there, but I don't think they ever filmed anything there.
No, they never filmed here. There aren't even like that. There aren't even like B-roll shots on Happy Days. And on Laverne and Shirley, there's a shot of City Hall.
Okay. In
the opening credits. I mean, they live in a sub-street level apartment. There may be 4 of those in the entire city of Milwaukee, all of them in Pro 11. And no, there's, I mean, the connection was this producer, Tom Miller, who it was an idea that he came up with, and Gary Marshall got involved. He based some of this, like Arnold's is based on the old Milky Way drive-in on Port Washington Road in Glendale, not too far from me. And but yeah, there's no, they never came here. Um, Ron Howard and Anson Williams came here for a promotional tour a couple years after the series started, and that
Okay.
might be the only time Ron Howard has ever been here. None of them had been here really before that 2008 thing, and I think a couple of them have been here since then. I don't know that. I think Winkler has been here a few times on like book tour type things,
Yeah.
but they don't do that kind of stuff anymore. You know, in the old days they did that. You know, personal appearances and things like that. They don't do that anymore.
Right. What do you think is a better?
But yeah, the show had nothing to do with here. It could have been Jupiter.
Right. What is your favorite statue, Fonz or Rocky? Speaking of fictitious characters in big cities.
Fictitious character statue. I actually like the Mary Tyler Moore statue in downtown Minneapolis.
Oh, that's a great one. But that was filmed there. Like, and Rocky ran up the steps. Like, they actually filmed that there.
Right. Well, I think movies do more of that than television.
That's true.
I mean, I would bet, and I don't know this because I haven't read enough history on it, but I would bet that except for the opening and closing credits, that there's not a whole lot that was shot in Minneapolis,
Right?
For Mary Tyler Moore either, or Bob Newhart in Chicago.
I forgot
that's
about
that's just how TV works.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been a few other sitcoms set in Milwaukee or set in Wisconsin. I just finished watching the new season of That 90s Show, and it's set in a strange city called Point Place, and they've never filmed here. So.
All right, one last Fonz thing for you. Speaking of Ron Howard,
Okay.
I didn't know this. I read this recently. I thought it was interesting. Two of who are considered the nicest guys in Hollywood, Tom Hanks and Henry Winkler, do not get along. They don't like each other. And Ron Howard is friends with both of them. Yeah, apparently when they were making Turner and Hooch, I think Henry Winkler was directing it and made a joke about Turner and Hooch that Tom Hanks did not like. I'm not sorry, Turner and Hooch, but of Bosom Buddies that Tom Hanks did not take to because it was a sitcom. And Hanks had Henry Winkler replaced on the movie. Henry Winkler did not finish the film. And Ron Howard said, they're both great guys. They're both good friends of mine. And it's really weird. They just don't, what a weird position to be in between two of who are
some people are really sensitive about Turner and Hooch,
I know I am. All right, let's move on. This is funny. Okay, so the article, you also wrote about a documentary that's coming out called Just a Bit Outside, and we're going to have the documentary, the documentarian, the director on the show. What can you tell us about that? I know it opens in September, but it sounds like a really cool film.
Yeah, I actually only know a little bit. I mean, what I've written really is at their, it's a documentary about the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers, and it's playing it. I think it's only playing in Marcus theaters, and probably only in Wisconsin. And it opens in theaters on September 13th. One thing that's intriguing to me about it is, and I've written about the 82 Brewers a few times in my Wayback Machine stories that I write, is that at least from the trailer, it suggests that it's going to be as much about how the city embraced the Brewers and the Brewers embraced the city. Because the timing of the Brewers winning the pennant is interesting in Milwaukee, because the early 80s is a time of incredible change here. And all the year before Brewers went to the World Series, Schlitz shut down for good.
Oh yeah.
We had Pabst went up for sale. The big layoffs were starting at the big manufacturers who by the decade ending were gone. A.O. Smith, Alice Chalmers, companies like that. And this city was in a very difficult spot. We had the horrible death in police custody of Ernest Lacey the year before all this happened. And there's lots of things going on here. It's a really fascinating time. And I'm hoping that's come through. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping to see it pretty soon. But it's a good subject, and it's clear from what I've read that they talked to just about everybody they could talk to. That obviously Harvey Keene is gone, but they talked to all the main players. It'll be interesting to see how far they go with it. It was an interesting time. I was in college in Milwaukee at that time, and it was an interesting time to be here.
Very cool. I don't mean to make you rehash all the things you've already written, but I like talking to you about them, and they're interesting articles. So if you can hang for a few minutes, we'll talk some TV and movies if you can hang with us for a little bit.
Sure.
All right, fantastic. Sure. We've got Civic Media award-winning news coming up next, and then we will be back with our friend Chris Foran. We'll talk movies and TV. He's seen some good stuff, and we will break it down and discuss it and see what we can recommend. This is Pete Schwaba and Nightlight on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I wish every day the sun would shine. Take me to another place in my life where everything is beautiful.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs across the network weekday evenings from 7 till 9. To learn more about this show and all of Civic Media's programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.